Well, I think it's time to talk to Zach about the amazing Licorice Pizza. Hey, Zach, say hi, and you're muted. There you go. And say hi and introduce yourself.
Hi, I think Mike Glazer should probably start first.
Oh yeah,
since
there's
you're the
Mike.
manager.
Mike's
Oh, hey, everybody.
Everybody gets shuffled around here. There we go. Now I can see you. Hey, Mike.
How are we doing?
Good. So say hi, introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk about Licorice Pizza or
So my
Soggy
name-
Bottom, whichever you prefer.
Michael Glazer, location manager, Virgo. Yeah, we much like the gentleman before us spoke about, being kind of the first Wild West of COVID. We are very much in that same category. Chris Ball had given a master class at Warner Brothers for King Richard about COVID and all the protocols that he had kind of built from scratch. So a lot of the managers that came to visit kind of figured out what we were going to do with COVID, which is now all standard and kind of we can do it in our sleep now. But it's back then, July into August, we kind of didn't know what we were doing, who's responsible for what, as I'm sure everyone kind of experienced. A lot of the stuff was trying to get offloaded onto the locations department. So as if our job isn't tedious enough. But location manager for Licorice Pizza, it's kind of like having a first round draft pick every single round when you're one of the first movies out. Was able to get Zach and some others on the team. We just had like a kind of a juggernaut team to help with the COVIDness of everything. And we were all over the Valley, and Paul Thomas Anderson is, an honorary location manager when it comes to the Valley, because there's really not a street corner that he doesn't know about or hasn't filmed, or his, the Hames sisters, their mother was his art teacher in school. So he's ingrained into the Valley. So it made it easier, but also harder, because if he wanted something, he knew about it. He had his mind set on it. Another thing I'll say, I was the fifth location manager to follow through on the movie. I had four other location managers before me: Justin Harold, Chris Ball, Justin Duncan, and Steve Schroeder, all shepherded the movie. And then I got handed off to me because I'm right in the middle of COVID. So it was a rocket ship from the beginning. I think we only had like less than 6 weeks of prep before it started. So I don't know if Zach wants to add anything about that.
Nope, I'm good.
Yeah, it was, we were all over the Valley. I had talked to some people that had worked on his movies before, and he said, leave about 2 weeks. That won't be ever scheduled, but we'll go over at least 2 weeks. And we pretty much hit the mark with 13 days of additional photography at the end. And we were all over the Valley. We'd spent a little bit of time in Hollywood, but we were pretty much consistently Valley. And got to do some things that I don't think you could normally do during COVID, because the traffic was so low. They let us, shut down parts of Ventura Boulevard, which I was told that, normally we're not allowed to do, and do some other rush hour restriction stuff that we were eating into rush hour restrictions, but they let us do for traffic wise, since it was a period movie.
That was one of my questions. It seemed like this one, because I knew that COVID, you guys were coming in on one of the early movies coming back, that it must have worked to your advantage in some ways, as much as it created a lot of additional work also.
It did. Yeah. And I think Film LA was a little kind of hesitant to help us. And then a few weeks had gone by and they were just like more than helpful. It was kind of bizarre. Probably because there was only a few movies out filming that they could kind of put all their attention to a couple of projects instead of everyone asking for we're special favors. And then what else? Yeah, I don't
will.
think there's no way I could have done it without the team that I had, of course, because a lot of this stuff was COVID kind of grinds departments down the first year, at least, with the amount of paperwork and all the protocols. And then we were lucky enough not to have anybody go down on our crew, for the exception of the DP and the electrical department that were out for 3 days because I think somebody had a false positive. So we were doing tech scouts with on FaceTime with the DP, which was interesting. But yeah, it was a good experience. We highlighted the valley as much as we could, Period Valley. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
We had a question from Sean Lambert. He wanted to ask about the different houses that were chosen for each of the characters and what were the characteristics that you were kind of tasked for finding. You know, sometimes they give you a look they're looking for to kind of help sell that character. You want to talk a little bit about the different properties?
Some of those properties were found before my arrival. The couple that we did find was really, it had to do with not having to dress the house very much. Like we'll change a light fixture there. We'll take an LED light out there, and and that was it. So we could move on to kind of keep it simple and keep it period. I mean, most of the valley now is perfect period because it was, it's built into the 40s, into the like early 80s. So most of the stuff's period in certain neighborhoods. But the houses we found were, it's kind of hard. And I'm going through the same thing on a project I'm on now, is we're trying to find an apartment that's stuck in time, but in Beverly Hills. And it's like, well, who in their right mind's going to keep an apartment stuck in time when you can charge so much rent? But yeah, I don't know really how to answer that question. It's just, I mean, it's the scouting before I arrived. Those are hard little gems to find, those houses that are stuck in time that aren't filled to the brim with a hoarder, which we normally find. But yeah, that neighborhood was good. With Alana, that neighborhood was kind of dicey because there was Orthodox Jewish people that were pretty much on the whole street. And we had a scene that was an ad lib scene, and the Haim sisters, their parents are from Israel. And there was expletive Jews said over and over and over and over again in the middle of the night. And all these Orthodox neighbors came out and kind of wanted to know what the hell was going on. And luckily we quelled that and just said, oh, don't worry, the actors are Jewish. And they're like, what does that matter? You're in my neighborhood yelling this stuff in the middle of the night. So that was a very interesting conversation. The next day I had to go around and apologize to the neighbors. And then we were lucky enough to add a night shoot of the same scene the week later. And I think we came back and did the same thing with a little bit more toned down lines outside the house. But we were pretty lucky. We pretty much had the valley to ourselves as far as traffic and coming and going and parking, and schools were closed. And it was, I mean, the planets aligned definitely for the team I had. The parking, the traffic, and kind of everything came together. Not to say it was easy, but it was actually a fun time looking back.
Zach, what was your favorite part of the production? Did you have a specific location that jumps out at you, or just what part of the process did you enjoy the most?
I think two of my favorite parts was the 76 gas station that I worked with. Although the owner was very difficult, I think swapping out the gas meters and just having to actually be able to find one of the 76 balls that actually still rotated, which I guess is impossible to find except for this one gas station. So I think that was fun. And then also, one of our locations was the Fat Bernie's waterbed, and then also the pinball machine, which we did in Chatsworth. And we pretty much took over that neighborhood for a couple months. COVID, I kind of had a different experience with COVID just because I was in neighborhoods and businesses, and a lot of them were closed down, and a lot of them had a lot of fear about people entering their stores. And of course, you have 150 people coming into your store, to shoot a film. There was a lot of concern about COVID. It was also hard to find business owners because a lot of the businesses had shut down. But once we got in, we were able to, not make people whole from COVID, but we were definitely there to add assistance while people were struggling, which was, great for the neighborhood and everything like that. As you can see from what Glazer is showing right now, the traffic, we had period cars. It was also interesting to find out that back in the 70s, it was free to park in the valley, which you can't do now. So they didn't have parking meters back then, as well as, the little hand signals to cross the street. So I found, researching that and finding out the history of Los Angeles and the valley was very interesting to do.
Tell us a little bit more about the pictures you're going to put up and the video you're showing right now, Michael. Oh, you're muted.
This is outside of Zach's location in Chatsworth. I think Zach lost 1 or 2 years of his life on this location. That mural there that says Jurgens, I can't see the rest of it. That had a locomotive, locally painted mural on it, which, you're always assured that it's not going to be damaged once we take the paper off. And sure enough, paint came off, and it was a big to-do for about, 4 or 6 weeks after we stopped shooting. That location,
I'm actually still getting calls about it, but
that location was hard because where the track currently is, that's an open tire place that does a hell of a business. There's got to be at least 100 cars that come through there a day with tires in the service center. So to look across the street, we did have an off schedule. We were Wednesday through Sunday.
Correct.
So luckily they were closed down one of those days, but like on Saturdays, we kept adding days to this location too. I can't remember how many days, but this was the location we couldn't really shoot out. We just kept adding stuff and kept having to come back, and Zach and our team kept having to renegotiate with the neighbors and the print shops and everybody. And it's funny to see the shops that were still not open like months after we left saying that they were going to open any day, of course. And we were putting them out of business even though they weren't open.
Yeah.
Which is all too common. And here's a good one of Zach here out in front of our hot dog location. This was a hard location just because it was in between all this traffic at an intersection. This is a gentleman that followed us around and would figure out where we were every day. Some of the days weren't even advertised on any kind of call sheet or any kind of memo, and he would still somehow find us. So that was scary until we figured out he was harmless. Just really annoying. This was a location we came back to a few times. This is I'm sure people have driven past this 100 times, but these are radio towers in the valley. This is the running scene that's supposed to be taking place in Hollywood. And they must have put in 5 or 6 miles that day doing the scene. What else do we have here? I know these aren't as spectacular as the Dune pictures, but they're pretty close. This is our truck scene. That scene was probably at least 2 weeks of filming the truck scene where it loses gas and has to go down the hill because they're in the middle of a gas shortage in the 70s. This is our one of our only 2 stunts, I think. The other one was the motorcycle.
Another interesting point about this location is we had to swap out all of the Cobra heads and the light towers because they weren't period correct. So we had to go through the entire street for about 2 blocks, swap out all the Cobra heads as well as all the fixtures, which made it interesting, which we worked with the city to do, and they were fantastic about it.
So being a movie, I mean, this movie is obviously kind of Paul Thomas Anderson's ode to his childhood, like so many things he does. He loves this area. Did that present any particular problems in finding the locations to, meet his expectations, or was he pretty much just embracing what was brought to him?
He was, and that was being the 5th manager. I think,
Yeah,
I would say probably 75-80% of the movie was already scouted before me, but we did bring him a few things that he didn't even know about. There really isn't a lot of pockets in the valley, and I'm talking the whole valley, that he doesn't know about. But there was, I think, Church of the Chimes was the only thing that Tristan had brought him that, every location manager, as far as I know, is at least parked there, if not filmed there. That brought him, that he was super excited about. That was the scene with Sean Penn doing the casting call with Alana. But other than that, a lot of these locations have been compromised with, unperiod things like lights and newer windows, or, there's the cities put, new stuff across the street, or just like benches. We had to move so many benches. Our Cobra heads, we had 27 of them that basically traveled with us with the set decorators. And the Tommy from, was it Johnny or Tommy from
Anthony?
Anthony and his crew with the city, depending on whose light it was, we employed them about every week to either take them down or restore them in another neighborhood. So we were constantly moving through the valley, doing lights, swapping lights, adding lights, subtracting lights. So that was fun. That kept us busy for sure.
well, I think we couldn't have done a better job of picking some of the most challenging ways to represent what we do with this batch of films. Every one of them has presented some pretty unique challenges, but this is also one of the more recent ones that I've had the opportunity to see and really enjoyed it. Did you guys know that it was going to be Licorice Pizza? I mean, you were working under the title Soggy Bottom, right?
We were actually told, and we have a shirt that says Fat Bernie's. We just assumed it would be Fat Bernie's.
Oh, that's funny.
And then I think, I don't know when it was. We were all surprised. I think even some of the producers are surprised that we changed it over to Licorice Pizza. But that's an old record store that was maybe some native Californians that would know is the code word for LP, a record LP. So Licorice Pizza was a fun, way more fun than Fat Bernie's, or especially Soggy Bottom, when you had to explain who you were, or opening an account for Soggy Bottom was always took people back.